Welcome back. Welcome back. We are so excited you're here. And today we are recording another episode of Maria and Friends. We would just want to thank you for being such a support and everyone that has been following us, commenting, and supporting us in every which way. We thank you. So we're going to go ahead and talk about a really good topic today. And please share. Comment, we're here for it, and we know that this is going to be a blessing to you. And today's topic is going to be about dealing with adult children. So if you don't have adult children, you have I'm sure you have friends that do. And sometimes when we talk about these subjects and different things like this, not necessarily something that you're going through, but you have friends, you have people around you that might be going through some of these things, and having this knowledge will help you be a better support to them. So let's go ahead and get started tonight, and here we go. Welcome back to another episode, powerful episode of Money and Friends. Today we are talking about something that hits home for many parents: how to deal with our growing children. Love doesn't stop, but challenges definitely change. Expectations shift, roles change, communication gets tested, and sometimes hearts get stretched. Today, Ulises and I are diving into the emotional, mental, and the relationship side of parenting with adult children, and how to navigate it with wisdom, boundaries, and grace. If you're feeling confused, hurt, and you were looking for some answers, this episode might help you. And like I've said before and said many times, we are not professionals. We're just two friends having a conversation here and sharing our life experience. And if there's anything that helps you, we hope that you receive that and learn from it. But definitely consult the professionals on this. We're just sharing our experience and what has worked for us, and in the hopes that something that we say or we do will benefit you in some way. So today, Mr. Ulises, again, he's already family. Welcome back, Mr. Ulises. How are you doing today?
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody is doing well. Maria, I hear a little raspiness in your voice. Tell the people how you are feeling tonight.
well, to well, I am getting my voice back after a few days. I'm not completely all the way there, but for the past few days, I've been struggling with my voice, but I'm doing good. I've been drinking a lot of tea and taking lozenges and doing what I need to do and rest. Because this, y'all know this is the money maker. So, so I got to take care of my throat. I got to take care of my throat because that's that's my main instrument right now. So yeah, but we're doing good. We're doing better. So thank you for asking. Are you ready for the topic tonight? What do you think?
Oh no, yeah, let's definitely get into it. As the people are coming in, we come please come in, take a seat, go ahead and get yourself something to drink, something comfortable to wear. Depending on where you are, so it could be a little bit chilly. So make sure you got your socks on, and make sure you got your little robe if you got one, and jammies if you got some. And do us a quick favor, make sure you hit that love button, or if you are on Facebook, make sure you hit that love button. Make sure you hit that share button. Make sure, because sharing goes a long way. Sharing is caring, as they say. So please make sure you share this Facebook Live. And if you are on YouTube listening live on the YouTube, make sure you hit not just the subscribe button, but which goes a long way to help Muddy out and help her to become worldwide famous. But also hit the notification bell so that when she does go live, you are notified. So please make sure you do all that stuff. And again, it goes a long way, especially on Facebook. Algorithm is everything, apparently. Algorithm is everything. So the more you like, the more you comment, the more it goes out there. Facebook catches, and they're like, "Oh, what's this Maria and Friends podcast show? What's this show all about?" And they got everybody tuning into it. So again, make sure you guys support. Make sure you guys hit that like and that share button. But yeah, definitely, Maria, I am ready.
So tonight we're going to talk about dealing with adult children. So let me be the first one to say that I have two grown adult boy. I call them boys, but they're men, and they're over the age of 30 each of them, and they've been a blessing. And one of the things that prompt me to have this type of conversation is because I know, Ulises, you have adult children as well, and there's different faces. The way you treat them when they're children and the way you treat them when they're grown is different. And something happened these past few weeks that made me think, hey, let's bring the subject. Let's talk about how we need to change so many things as parents, because this is a little person. I always say this is a little person given 18 years to, that you, for 24 hours you have thought about this person, you have prayed for that person, for this little person that God gave you and put you in your hands, and you've cared so much. Now they're adults. Now it's a whole different ball game. And so we sometimes need that, to have that conversation, that now as parents we need to shift. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about different things, a couple of things that I have gone through as a parent of adult children, that I have had to change, and the process that I have gone through. And hopefully, Ulises, you bring your side of the story as well. One of the things too that I wanted to see how you felt, and we'll start with this one, is that I saw an episode of Oprah, and she was doing a show on children that have stopped talking to their parents. They have made the decision to
Mhm.
stop talking to their parents. And I was thinking, wow, that's very difficult. And that seems to be like a trend when some kids are not understanding their parents or having difficulty. They just cut them off. And it seems to be more accepted and more accepted. Um, I grew up in a generation that you stick with family no matter what. No matter what they do, no matter what they say, you don't. But now I see the shift in this generation, and some people saying, no, we want to cut them off, and that's it. Just like that. And what do you think of that?
No, I think as you said, in our generation, I mean, looking back on it, it's like, yo, like we were some toxic individuals. We were some toxic people, with everything that's out now, with when it comes to behaviors, narcissism, and take your pick. We could easily look at a couple of our relatives and be like, yeah, they fit the bill for sure.
Yes.
You know, so I think as a parent, I if my child was to tell me that, because I watched the clipping of that YouTube
Uh-huh.
on Oprah, and it's like we're not talking weeks or months, we're talking
I know, right?
years of them purposely saying I would not talk to my parents, or a couple of them were my siblings, and one lady was even like, I haven't spoken to my child in over 2 years. So it's one of them things where it's like, where is that fine line? Where is that
Yes.
fine line? So I'm coming from a household of, my parents taught us that family is everything, unity.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and kind of seeing, okay, how to navigate, how to do, conflict resolution, whatever the case is, and then growing up, getting married, having a family of my own, and I seen how the mind, the shift,
Correct.
that the family shift took place, where it's like before, you know, hey, growing up, if you didn't get a spanking, what was wrong with your parents, right?
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you used to get whooped and nobody batted an eye, nobody had a second thought about it, whatever the
You're
case
like,
is.
yeah.
Now, oh my
Oh
God,
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
so and kind of seeing, I saw firsthand with my kids, and and how they dealt with their mom and how they dealt with me, and like, and so I kind of seeing, even without getting out into full detail, where I had one of my children kind of do that, right, where they kind of, um for the sake of their mental health, they kind of they didn't talk to their mom for a good while.
No
Be-
contact.
no
It's called
contact,
no contact.
and so it's just one of them things, where where you just have to be mindful. But man, like, your peace, is your peace worth cutting them off, or is there a way to salvage a relationship even after the no contact?
Well, I think that you have to be careful with us promoting, you know, and we have to be careful with us promoting the no contact. There has to be a good reason, because if, for example, as a parent, if my kids, they choose to do a no contact, and no contact, let's say, no, I'm not going to talk to my parents anymore. Is there a reason? Is there a justified reason? Is it just because we don't agree in few things, or is it because it's a toxic parent? It's an abusive parent. So what I'm trying to understand is this culture, now that they're doing it, is it just because I feel like it, because I'm going, you're not, have you tried to go to counseling? Have you tried to make amends? Have you tried, or it's just easier to say nope, not no content until they see my point of view? So there has to be, a reason.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand and I agree that if you have toxic parents, and it's your mental health is on the line, I can understand why a no contact would be okay. But we've got to be careful. I would even suggest that if there's a possibility that you want to go no contact with your parents, talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor, talk to a spiritual guide, a leader, someone that can tell you for sure it's a good idea, not just because of what you've heard or what you think or whatever. Talk to somebody to see if there's, before you go that route, because that's like a really final thing. If you, before you go that route, talk to somebody that can kind of guide you and help you make that decision if it's the right one for you, because you can really break a parent's heart. Like, I know that there was a time that my kids decided not to talk to me for almost, I could say, 2 years. And it broke me. I mean, and the circumstances were just when we are going through a divorce, and there was a lot of misunderstanding and just different things, and they just decided no contact. They made that decision, and I remember that it was so difficult. However, as a parent, I kept the doors open. I made sure that even though they were not almost 2 years, I'm telling you, birthdays, Christmases, Thanksgiving, and I love my boys. I'm like a helicopter mom, and to me, that was something that I had to navigate. I had to, first of all, come to the Lord and say, Lord, you got to help me with this, because this is not easy. This is not easy. But then I had to say, okay, what are the circumstances? And I had to talk to, a spiritual advisor and say, can you help me with this? What am I doing? How can I make this? And so there was a process there, because one of the main things I did was leave the door open. I needed to respect their boundaries, but I always made sure that they knew that whenever they wanted to come back and reestablish that communication, I'd be available. So,
Yeah.
so that those are growing pains kind of thing. But like I said, even me, I needed to find a spiritual guidance. I need to find somebody that knew more about this, that will guide me through that process. Because if not, I mean, it will really hurt your heart. And so let's talk about, unless you want to
No,
comment on that anymore. We'll get into.
no, I definitely wanted to add to that, because it's like, I too was in a situation where going through a divorce, and my kids, and it wasn't 2 years, but it was 8 months. But Lord, it felt like 2 years.
Right?
You know, it really did. And because I've always been a family man, like I was a very active father with my kids,
Yes.
and so it was like, so having that no contact, and the no contact wasn't necessarily anything that was like toxic in the situation. It was more out of a place of manipulation and deception. So, but regardless, like, that was tough, I mean, that was the one thing, the only thing that really could have hurt me when I was going through my situation, was not having my kids, in my life. I missed the birth of my grandkids.
Yes.
I had to find out through, my parents that, hey, you're a grandfather, and so it just wasn't the same. Just wasn't the same, but it was just like, and I remember Maria like going through like just a
Wow.
serious a serious depression state, because it was just like, like I felt like I was missing everything. And I just, and the one thing that God told me, it was just one thing, Maria, and what He told me was, they may they may block you, they may not want to talk
Yes.
to you, but the one thing they cannot do is erase the memories that you created with them, and hold on to that. And so that was my hope. That was my strength. That I knew that my kids were going to come back. I knew that I was going to, reestablish a relationship with them, because what the Lord said, hey,
Yeah.
yes, this is what's going on, but, and I encourage anybody with adult children or even small children, like especially smaller kids, like create those memories, because that's the one thing that they can't, no matter how hard they try to forget, they won't be able to forget the memories that you make with them. So, I definitely encourage y'all. Definitely.
You- and we're getting some really good comments. And also, actually, this is, I don't know if you, what do you think, Ulises? My son just texted me and he wants to know if he can join the conversation.
Come on in.
So I don't know if
It-
you, I'm gonna send him the link. So if you see him come through, and then there's some really good. I don't know if you want to comment on Miss Jody's comment there.
yeah. Ms. Jody says, I don't feel like anybody is owed access to you, even if it is a parent. That being said, there is a difference between setting boundaries and just moving in unforgiveness. Yeah, no, that's tough. It's as they say, it's tight, but it's right. And that's and that should be the focal point of any, what they call no contact. Is it has to be about boundaries, and respecting the boundaries, and whatever the timing is when it comes to forgiveness, whatever that looks like. We have to allow that time. Trying to force yourself in there, or trying to, make a way to try to slide your way in, like, just allow that time to take place, allow that healing. And again, like Jody says, those boundaries are crucial. And believe you me, people will try. They will try to step into those boundaries and knock them over and make you create new ones, and whatever the case is. um, but it's just one of them things. And now we have Maria's son, Mr.
Danny.
Daniel.
Is my
What's,
room clean? It
it looks
okay.
horrible, bro. It looks
Okay.
horrible.
I'm pretty sure it looks empty and desolate. I got my one poster and my generic bedspread. What's up?
Hey Daniel, hey, how are you, mijo? ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, muy bien. Aquí sobreviviendo, como dicen en mi país.
Oh my goodness gracious! So let me mother you a little. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. So as I was telling you, Daniel, we're gonna have a good conversation. So um about dealing with adult children, and I think it was I'm really glad that you wanted to join in the conversation and give us your point of view. And Mr. Ulises um, was bringing some good points. I don't know if you heard some of that what he said and what I was saying, that um, what about this culture lately that is a no contact with families, and it's something that we come from a generation that you struggle with your parents no matter what and you stuck there. And I also brought the point that we've got to be careful that we don't overdo it, that if there's a necessary reason. So what do you think of your generation doing that? Have you heard of that? Let's start there. Have you heard of
I
that?
have. I fully have. Now to be clear, I fully have personal friends of mine that have gone no contact with their parents. Um, for a number of reasons. And I've talked to him about it because, and to be open and kind of honest about our relationship is,
Yes.
I've fully moved, right? I'm not even on the same coast as you anymore. I know that was hard to deal with because going from the Southwest all the way to the East Coast, like I any more East Coast and I'd be West Coast again. Like that's how far east I went. And it's not that it's no contact. Like I'm 2 hours ahead of you. So like now I have to make that extra effort. So it's easy for me to excuse that and be like, "Oh, sorry, mom, I was working." It's
No,
it's
but what I'm talking about is when when
right,
people your age decide because of trauma, because of certain things.
right.
Like me and you we don't talk every day because of course we have different schedules, but it's not like we have problems. Make that clear because that's how
Yes,
gospel
yes,
starts.
yeah, no, and so and that's what I'm kind of building up to because we have a reason for missing each other. That's the
Yes.
point I'm trying to make. We have a reason
Oh,
because
okay.
we and that's one thing to miss each other. But to go fully no contact, like don't talk to me, don't talk to my dogs, don't like my pictures, don't follow me on Instagram, don't follow me.
Block, block,
I
block.
right. I like block you, block your burner profiles, block your ex because you might ask him one time to look at me. Like I have friends that are like that. And so when they try to relate to me like that, I'm like, hold on, there's a distinction. I have limited contact with my mother because she's in a different time zone. There's people that, and it may be controversial, but there's people that actually need that. There's people that actually have to go no contact with their parents. And I'm not talking about like extreme circumstances where like your father was an abuser or your mother was like all kinds of crazy. Those are different circumstances. But there's people that cannot function with their parents in their lives. And it's not that I don't have that issue. I don't necessarily support it, but there's some people that just can't do it. There's just some people like, and I'm talking about like my generation specifically, because I'm elder millennial, so like I'm a '90s baby. So there's fully a disconnect. So I have friends, for example, I have a friend of mine. She can't keep her parents in her life because once she tries to introduce them, they were like a very nestled family that when they come in, they try to micromanage her life, and she
Mhm.
can't do it because they're like, why don't you have kids? Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? Why do you drive the car that you do? And they're like, well, mom, dad, I have this because of the way that I need it. And I think it's where I'm seeing the difference between like me and you and like friends that have no contact with their parents is that they never took the time to reintroduce themselves as to their parents as
There you
adults.
go. That right there.
And I think that's the hard part. Like, and then with us, I know because we've had this conversation before, and I remember specifically when we had a conversation of when you had to you used to refer to it as that you had a funeral for your expectations of me.
Oh yeah. Are you gonna put all my business out there? I
Put it
don't
all
know.
out
Well, I
there.
mean, it's because no one talks about it, and it's weird. It's weird. I promise you, as someone who has this conversation, I wouldn't say often, but a lot, who has this conversation with other people of my age or even older, like people they just can't function with their parents. They can't function with, and I'm like, that's so weird to me. But it's the
But
same thing for like grandparents too, because grandparents don't function with their parents, and it's almost like, oh well, that's what we've always done. I was like, so you've just normalized cutting everybody off that loves you. I'm like,
exactly
that's so weird,
and that's
bro.
the point. And that's a point. And that's the point I want to make. When does it become just a normalizing doing it and instead of
Hmm.
taking it seriously if you're going to do it. And let me go back to that point. When I told Daniel that I had to have a funeral for my expectations is because and then we'll let Ulises comment on this but I had to realize that you changed,
Hmm.
that you became a man, that you're not my little boy. And I had to,
Shout out to Bridget. She knows what's up.
oh yeah, Bridget. So I had to have a funeral for my expectations because I
Hmm.
wanted you to be a pastor.
Yep.
I wanted you to be like your grandfather.
Pastor,
I wanted to
minister.
be I
Yeah.
wanted you to be a pastor like your abuelo. I wanted you to
And the
be a pastor like
mountaintop.
your dad.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be a prophet like your dad. I wanted you to go preaching to the nations. I wanted you to be a teacher like I'm a teacher.
Mhm.
So I raised you with that mindset. You're gonna be a pastor, you're gonna be a preacher, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. And I had this image of what I want you to
Right.
be. And then when you said, no, mom, I want social media, I'm like, well, what the heck is social media?
Yeah.
What is that? No, mom, my I want to be a producer. I want to be this. I have a different mindset. And I saw you
Right.
shifting not away from God, but away from my expectation. You didn't want to wear
Mhm.
suits, you didn't want to wear ties, you didn't want to wear nothing that had to do. I mean, you were rebellious.
Not to put your business out there, but I remember the day that I chose to shave my head and stop. So I'll give Ulises. I'll give you the lore. I can fully grow my hair back, and we have amazing hair follicle DNA in our family. Like my grandfather, who's 167,000 years
Oh
old,
no.
has a full head of hair, and he's always like, right. So
Right, right.
we have
Papi
strong hair,
chulo, papi chulo.
right,
Yeah.
right. So we have those genes in our family, and I remember I tried it one time when I was in middle school, and then I hit high school. Because like one time in middle school, I remember distinctly telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, I want to shave my head, just like straight buzz cut. My mom hit the ceiling. I just remember my mom. My mom's a fiery Puerto Rican woman, and the one thing that I still, it's a core memory, if you will, of when I told my dad, "Hey, I want to shave my head," and my dad's like, "Cool, let's shave your head." Right? It was a buzz cut down like a zero. My mom hit the ceiling. She's like, "You let him shave his head? He looks like Lex Luthor. He looks like Lex Luthor. You let him shave his head?" And then I just remember, like, as I was probably what, 11, 12, and I was like, well, Lex Luthor is kind of the smartest man in DC, not to be nerdy, but it was one of those things where I'm just like, I remember trying to make those decisions for myself. And when I got into high school, because I grew it back and I was in high school, you know what, I'm doing this for myself, I'm taking it all off, and I'm going to stay bald forever. And it was one of those things where my mom understood that I was going to make those decisions. You have people that have parents in their lives that don't ever make that distinction. They don't ever think they don't ever think that in I don't know, it's like maybe it's the mindset of the person, because I've fully had conversations with other friends of mine that parents will jump into their life and they'll try to course correct them because the parents care so much that they don't want them to make the same mistakes that they made when they were kids. But the worlds are different. So it's this weird thing of where you have parents that are going to try to teach lessons that don't work anymore to their kids because the world is completely different. The rules are different. Like back in my mom's day, you could work a decent job, make 50, 60K a year, and you would have a house and a car, and you'd be fine, because that's more or less, I did the math, because more or less that's what my dad was making. He was making about 56 to 70K a year, and we owned the place that we were at. We had 2 cars. My mom had to work because she wanted to, and she didn't want to stay at the house all the time. That doesn't exist
Stop
anymore.
putting all my business out there. We're
Well,
talking about you.
this happened back when the world was whole like different.
Oh, did you hear that? When the world was old, when the world was old.
No
Oh, that
offense,
hurt.
no offense, no offense,
I'm just
no
saying to
offense.
get at that time to get internet, you could get internet as a free trial on a CD that me and my brother started fully using as frisbees. So
AOL, AOL.
AOL, man. You remember the you got mail thing,
Yeah.
and but the worlds are different. Like now, if you make 100K a year, on average, every month you're going to be in debt $400. Like the standard of living is so different. It's so different, and so those lessons don't necessarily work. And
Mhm.
you have parents who haven't fully accepted their children as adults.
And that's tough because because the biggest thing now is that brings up to one of the points is that thin line between parenting and friendship, right?
Right.
Like, and people they talk about all the time, you can't be a friend to your child. But and for me, like I'm gonna be honest, in the way that I, halfway started raising up my children was like I started thinking big picture.
Mhm.
Like eventually, because I started seeing, like older generations older than me and kind of seeing how they dealt with their children and how they were like, hey, now we're best friends and this, da, 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 da. And it's like, so my mind began to shift toward, you know, is there a fine line where I can mix the parenting with the friendship, right? Being the cool dad, as they say, and I got a lot of slack for it. You're not being, you know,
Like authoritarian enough, tough enough on your
authoritarian.
kids. Yeah.
Right. I'm the one, my ex used to be, he was like, I'm the one that's always disciplining. And I just get up, raise my voice a little bit and everybody listens.
Yeah.
But, but what I saw was that there was a different level of respect,
Yeah.
that comes when it's like, okay, sitting your child down, getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, they're going to disobey. Yeah, they're going to rebel. It's what kids do. Right. Us as adults, we do the same thing. So it's like,
right.
Hey, this is like, I tell my daughter all the time, I say, you look like me and golly, you act like me, and it's like, but it's one of them situations, man, where it's like, as my daughter's 26 and she got twin boys. My son is 21 and he's got himself a good job, got himself a beautiful girlfriend, and they're talking about marriage. And it's just like, so now it's like I get calls from my son about relationships and about the job, but man stuff, right? Because I was, through the grace of God, I was able to be that example of a hard worker. Don't call out even when you're dying. You just work, whatever the case is. And then on the flip side with my daughter, it's like to be that provider, that that security, to where she's like, this dad, like, this is the example that you gave me, and now she's working, like if there's anybody who can survive, it's my daughter can find a job. She's a hustler, for sure, but to sum it all up, it started with, for me, it started with understanding, okay, as a parent, as God is my father, right? God is my father. Like, how does God treat me?
Right.
Does he snatch that belt like my parents used to? No. One time my mom grabbed a branch. I don't know where she got the branch from, but chased me. I was like 8 years old, being chased around the yard.
I fully believe that mothers have some kind of like anti-corporeal power to manifest and materialize
super seance.
So like, Doctor Strange has got the sling ring, he's opened a portal. I promise on everything that I understand to be true, my mom had one of those, and she would reach her hand to the kitchen and grab the heaviest, most dense object she could find, and she would throw that with like a heat-seeking missile precision, and it would always nail me in the side of my head.
Call of Duty
yeah, 100%. And it's just like, I wish I had hair on my head to soften the impact, but I guess not.
No, that was one regret. This is why I shouldn't have shaved my head. But I remember one time, like I came home super late. I was like 8 years old. Came home super late, and my mom grabbed the branch and just started running. And I was faster than her. That's when I first realized I'm faster than my mom. But then I also realized,
I gotta come back.
I gotta come to the house.
I gotta come back.
So I just got down on one knee and just and next thing, whack. Like, one of her friends had to pull her off me. Yvette, don't. You about to kill him. Yeah. But I learned a valuable lesson. Don't come home at 11 o'clock at night when you're 7 years old. Don't do that.
Oh my God. So I wanted to talk to to all of you, and talk about when it comes to a different way of communicating. So how have you found, like Daniel and I we've even took a test lately to figure out our communication styles.
I fully 100% advocate for that, because I mean, a lot of people, I'll give my spiel. A lot of people put a lot of trust. People are quick to Google their astrological sign to figure out how they operate as a person, not fully knowing that astrology like that is based off of generalities. there is
Oh,
one.
Edo from North
Edo,
Carolina.
what's
Edo,
up? What
woo!
up, man?
What part of North Carolina? What part of North Carolina are you from?
What part of North Carolina?
What part of North Carolina?
But there's it's one thing to understand astrology, but Myers Briggs, the Myers Briggs test, I recommend everyone take it. Go to 16personalities.com and take the free test. It's like what, like 30, 40 some odd question. It's a bunch of questions. It's a lot of questions. But what it'll
There you
do,
go.
what it'll do is it'll break down who your communication style, your personality type, and it'll give you like broken down into sections: how you communicate, how you problem solve, how you think, how you process information, what you look for as far as reassurances, and how you disseminate data, basically, and how you understand data, how you understand, how you communicate, and things that you look for, even to the point where it'll recommend fictional characters that have that same personality type, so you can kind of understand how they work. So what I did is I took my test, my Myers-Briggs test, and I figured out that I'm an ENTPT, which basically means I like to debate, I like data, I like to talk. And I figured out that I can disguise everything through humor, but I'm also very cold in data. Where it flips for my mom is also very extroverted, but she's very warm about things. So she wants reassurances, she wants warm love, she wants, there's different ways. So when we took those tests, there's a lot of things that we figured out and we compared both, and I'm like, oh, this is why we have the issues that we have. So where I'm very logical and very cold in receiving ideas, my mom is very warming, very loving in receiving ideas. So if we go, I'm hungry, I'd be like, cool. What did you eat yesterday? What are you eating now? Are you tired hungry, or are you actually pain hungry? Do you need coffee? Do you need water? So I'm very cold and calculating, very logical in what I'm trying to think. And my mom's like, I'm hungry. I
Panda
want to,
Express.
and she's like, I want to go to a restaurant where we can sit down and have a conversation because I'm hungry for food, but I'm also hungry for time and I want to share food and love with you. And I'm like, we need to eat because we have things to do. And I'm like, what's the optimum fuel that we can get in our body so we can continue to go do things? So there was a lot of those things where you have things like personality types that conflict. So I think it's the idea of kids not speaking to their parents anymore is very nuanced, because you got culture, you have whatever they grew up believing. The large majority of us are Christian, so that you have those things. You have the guilt, you have the church guilt, because we're all raised in church of like, you obedience to your parents will give you the kingdom of heaven, and if you disobey your parents, then you will never go to heaven ever, and estás castigado, and you're going to hell forever. And that's what you grow up thinking when you're a kid, and you're just like, dang. So you have all this guilt, all this religious guilt, all this Christian guilt, you have this church guilt. And so you combine that, so fully understanding where you don't slow down and have that conversation with your parents and understand your parents as people. That's why you're like, I'd rather not talk to them
Yeah, I want, and we're gonna let Ulises talk too here because you and I can talk. Me and Nano can talk forever.
all day.
So one of the things that I had to learn as a parent is a different way of communicating with you and Gabriel.
Mhm, mhm,
And not only did I need to learn how to learn a new way of communicating with you and boundaries, but also with Gabriel, because you two are like night and day. Because I only have
mhm,
two boys, you two are night and day. So with each of you, I had to stop and say, okay, if I want to continue a relationship with my boys, with Daniel and Gabriel, I'm gonna have to learn their language. But
mhm,
you know what? I also saw, and I know this is where God works, because I also saw that you started to care about how you talk to me. And I saw where Gabriel cared too, how to learn. So it's just not about me trying to learn you in just one
mhm,
way. I try to leave it open so when you were ready, you could come back and we can have a conversation. But I also saw you and Gabriel put the effort, because I, as a parent, did the example first
mhm,
and said, okay, I'm willing to learn how to talk to you differently. I'm willing to learn how to give you your space and understand, because I wanted to, I'm just so loving, like, I mijo, please, and mom was like, and Dan was like rolling his eye, like, oh my God, mom, please.
We're
And,
just sitting there like, hello, mother.
and he's like, hola. And I'm like, oh. you know. So Ulises, you want to talk and how you communicate with your kids?
No, it something that Daniel has said earlier when it comes to like being raised as a child in church, and much less even being a parent growing up in church, and that whole dynamic. And it really poses the question, like the like how much of an influence, good or bad, does the church play in teaching parents how to raise their kids,
Mhm.
and kids how to, you know, listen to your parents and obey your parents and things of that nature. But yet, I mean, and I was a youth pastor for about 5 years, and it was always a tough dynamic, right? Because you know, as a youth pastor, you get privileges of the children sharing stuff with you, and that goes on in the household. The parent, either whether it be a two parent home or a single parent home, and the whole dynamic of that, right? So it's like, and I've always kind of like saw, okay, you know what, there has to be a new level of understanding when it comes to being in the church, as you know, and we'll use Danny, we'll use Maria as an example since they're here. So Maria, like how did, like when it came to raising your kids in church, and then I'll flip the question to Danny as well, so he can answer it as well. Um, like, do you feel that raising your child, and those listening in, please chime in, please comment in. Excuse me. That how do you feel the church, being raised in the church, kind of growing up in church, and the whole dynamic? Like, do you feel like it helped you with your children, or you feel like, what, like they taught me this, but there was so much more I had to learn?
Well, I'll go first. As far as parenting, when it came to raising Daniel and Gabriel, um, we had a combination. It was a combination of several things. First of all, when Daniel's dad and I decided how we were going to raise them, we had the knowledge of the Word of God, because one thing I do believe, even to this day, that there's things that the Bible say that it doesn't matter what generation comes and goes, they are true. They are true. They are everlasting. To honor, to obey, to listen, to bring, honor to your parents. And so those are true, that no matter who you are, what you sow is what you reap, and different things like that. Even like parents, do not use words that make your kids mad. Kids, obey your parents, so you will live longer. So even though there's a lot of new things coming up, there's still Bible truth that no matter who you are, what you're at, they're going to be. So we had a combination of the Word of God and what we knew about teaching, about parenting, and also we had the cultural side. So we had this biblical base, and then we had this cultural base, which is like, I was raised Puerto Rican, I was raised a certain way, his dad was raised a certain way, and then his dad has trauma, I had trauma. So we brought all this into our parenting, all culture, our Hispanic culture, what we learned from the Word of God, and then what we learned from the outside culture. So we had to, as parents, we had to navigate and say, okay, we're going to take this obviously from the Word of God, but also we're going to go ahead and not raise the kids the way they raised us and learn better. But yet, these are traditions that the way they taught me and his dad a certain way that helped us. So what we tried to do with Daniel and Gabriel, we try to do, to grab the best of all those worlds of, the Word of God and the outside culture, and then the way we were brought up, and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And there's not a manual, so some of the stuff we tried worked, some of the stuff didn't, some of the stuff we realized halfway through, we goofed up on that. Or some of the times, we had to come and say, hey, down, you know what, we were wrong in this. And some of the things that, the no's, there were a lot of no's, that there was a lot of things that they didn't let me do, and me and his dad thought we're not going to do to them. we're going to let them be who they are. We're going to let them do this. We're going to let them find their own way. So there was a lot of trial and error, but ultimately we did our best. So a lot of parents go through that there's not a manual for each kid, doesn't come up with a manual. You have to go along the way and try to do what's best. But the way we raised is a combination of the word of God, all cultures, what worked for us, and the outside knowledge that we receive by reading books, by self-help, with getting counseling from other parents and said, hey, this works and this doesn't and stuff. And I remember one time this person, I'm not going to give all the details, but this person told John, Daniel's father, no, no, just grab him like this and just whip him, blah, 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 blah. And John looked at him and said, no, nuh-uh, I'm not going to do that to him. That it
Wow.
doesn't merit that. Doesn't, no, because blah, 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 blah. And at that moment he realized this type of violence is not going to work at his age. And I remember him making that decision. I remember there's decisions that I had to make and say, you know what, I want to raise them different. But that's how we did it. That's how. Then when it comes to the church, you get a lot of old people. I mean, you get a lot of
Mhm.
different ideas telling you what works and what doesn't. So you've got to rely on God. There's truth that are eternal no matter what, but for the most part you also have to rely on God. And like what Daniel was saying, they're a different culture. Things that worked, hello Tati, things that worked for them 20 years ago might not work now.
Mhm.
So for you, Danny, like growing up in that in the church culture, and then basically church culture, and then you have the outside culture, right? Got two things kind of just like almost seems like it's contradicting each other, right?
Colliding,
So
right?
so growing up for you, growing up in that environment, how do you feel church has helped you or hindered you from from being raised, kind of seeing stuff, and how did that affect you as you were growing up?
So I- for us, trying to explain it how it made sense to me, because my brother and I have talked about it a lot as we got older and we got out of being kids, and we could really look back and reflect. I'm like, okay, some of this stuff makes sense. Um, Matter of fact, like I was talking to my mom about it even before we jumped on, of just like church did both. Truthfully, it did both. It helped us because I remember my brother recently went through a situation, and he's like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, or I reacted differently, or I shouldn't have done that, because I'm older now. I'm older, and I understand that that's what I would have done when I was a kid, because that's what I thought I wanted to do. But now that I'm a man, that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work for anymore. It costs too much. I stayed way longer than I wanted to be. The cost isn't there for me. And I'm like, well, and I'm thinking like, well, man, we wouldn't have done that when we were younger. And this has nothing to do with the church side of things. But then I told him the difference for us, me and my brother, is that my mom and my dad decided early on, even before their parents, because this is something I realized when I got older, is that the work that they did to improve their relationship with God, to understand God on their own terms, to build their stability as people, and then to stabilize the marriage with God and with word and with seeking and with finding uh, different strategies of what worked, what made them not worked, and all that translated itself in. It was something I told my brother, that we're going to see people go through stuff, and we're going to realize that we're never going to have to go through that. Some of these people don't have a choice. I told them, while we make a conscious decision to try to dance with the demons, some people have to live with them. Because I remember when we were growing up, some ministers used to say, don't go out into the world looking for a testimony. Me and my brother never had that option, because my parents made the conscious decision to be like, you might hear this, you might hear this, you might hear this. People will say this, and this. While not completely wrong, it's not true for you guys. Remember who you guys are. So it was two parts. my parents were very adamant about, this is your culture and where you come from and who you are, and this is who you are in Christ. This is more important than your culture, but the culture is going to affect how other people tell you how Christ works. And my parents were always like, find Christ for yourself, understand what Christ is for you, because everyone's going to have a different definition. And I remember my mom and my dad were very specific on, now I'll be honest, they never did they say don't trust church, but they were very, very, very strong about saying find God for you, because once you understand who Christ is, nobody can tell you different. And that was the main difference. While my parents didn't preach church, they taught Christ, and that was the thing that saved us. Because again, it really came down to the point where we had to make decisions when we became men. And like, my brother chose to leave and go run a business. I chose to run to the church and commit my life to ministry and to service and to working in the church and to refining different things in church. But it always came back to the same thing of me and my brother were like, dang, we are glad that, because we had perfect bad examples both in our family and friends of just like people who decided to stay in that definition of what they let other people make the choices for them, and they live miserably right now, and they're just having hard times, they've turned their back on Christ. They will never come back. They've sworn off of it. And it's like, me and my brother are at that point where we don't understand. We're like, so you're just gonna let somebody else convince you not to follow Christ, even though he's the only, like, this dude saved you. This dude is the only reason why you're here. And it's just one of those things. To answer your question, the church helped, but with church helped with the guidance of my parents, and the guidance of my parents helped church, if that makes sense. Because while my parents were like, this is what church is, there's so many different people. They're going to say this, figure it out for yourself. We're here if you have questions. But that was one of the things, like my parents fully let me wear hoodies to church, and that was the coolest thing ever. My dad let us be comic nerds, because my dad was like, hey man, I see you like comic books. Captain America is kind of cool. And we're like, oh, so we were full of those kids that were pulling up to church with Bibles and comic books. And those are one of those things that we understood that freedom, and that freedom really helped later down in life, because now we get to make choices, and now we're better. I don't know how to express it enough, but because my parents chose to include both, my brother and I are well-adjusted adults. Because you'll soon to find out, and I'm sure you've seen it as your kids have grown up from youth ministries, they lean very far to the extreme on one or the other side. They're very few in the middle, and the ones that are in the middle that understand that a life with Christ in this world is a balance of both.
Amen.
With a full trust in God. If they don't understand that or have never figured it out for themselves, they're on one extreme. Either they're way too far, so far indoctrinated in church where it's not to their benefit and they don't understand real life, or they're on the other end where they're 100% full in life and don't understand Christ for anything. And it's like, you need both. You need Christ to have and live this life, but you still need to live this life.
And that's beautiful, because and this goes out to all the parents out there, whether you have adult children, small children, whatever the case is, or praying for your child who hasn't, fully, as you feel, hasn't fully come back to the Lord. Like, let what Danny is saying, and, be a testament that, listen, God is not slacking his promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the word says, train up a child in the way that he should go, that he will never depart. It doesn't mean that he's not going to find his, go try to find their own path, trying to find their own way, try to basically, they want to know what their identity is. And a lot of children growing up, they find themselves diving into certain situations, certain things to see, because this is how they feel they are. And and this is what makes them feel complete. But what Danny is saying, and I can tell you what with my children, it's they're out there, but at the same time, they know God is real. They whenever something happens in their life, good or bad, Dad, this is what happened, or Dad, let me tell you what God did for me. And it's a beautiful thing as a parent, and I'm sure Maria can attest to it. Like it does something to you when your children will just want to have a conversation about what, hey, this is who God is. I've had theological conversations with my kids.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, this is I don't feel like this is true anymore. Okay, well, let's talk about it. And let's get your perspective, get your reason, and let's dive, because I'm a deep thinker by nature. Like I'm just, I'm a deep guy. So there's not too much that I haven't talked about, don't know about, or willing to learn. If I don't know about it, but being able to, as as we start transitioning, to from a parental relationship to a more of a parental friendship
Advisor.
advisor,
Advisor.
Type of role, wisdom counselor. That's the hope anyway, right? Like that,
Yeah.
that's the hope. Like, I'm grateful that my kids call,
Yes.
when they need help or they need assistance, like, hey, my both of my kids, are on their own, but they don't tell nobody, but they do call their daddy. You know what I'm saying?
I fully call my dad. Like, there's things I call my mom about, and there's things I call my dad about. My dad has a deep wealth of experience in God, but also he has a very, very, very deep understanding of cooking and kitchen. And I remember now, mom, plug your ears, but I had started a job. Mom, for real, plug your ears, because I'm about to say something. No. What it was,
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
I invited some coworkers, some females I wanted to impress, and I had like a full party, like because I think it was
Pajama
Super Bowl.
party.
It was a consensual non-touch sleep. No,
Oh
no.
my God. I don't want to hear this.
Basically I made food at the house, and I invited, because it was I think it was Super Bowl, and I was like, oh, I'll just invite people to the house. I'll invite coworkers, and I was like, there might be some cute girls. Mom said she wants grandbabies. Maybe I could cook something up, so we could cook something up. And so the whole thing was, I was like, so the whole thing was like, I was like, I know how to cook for me and like 2 other people. There's like 9 people coming. I don't know how to cook for 9 people. Either I cook for 5 or I cook for 300. Like, there's no in between. And so I was like, I wonder if only there was a person that I could reach out to that knows how to gauge and how to operate the things. I'm like, oh, that's my dad. So I was comfortable enough to like talk to my dad, and I can't tell you how or when or why, or maybe it's just a Christ in our lives, but me calling my dad, asking him for a cut of meat, turned into why John the Baptist specifically was called to baptize Jesus. And I'm sitting in Costco talking about the geopolitics of the Bible with my father, and how everything's a symbol, and how everything. And I'm like, all right, Dad, so should I get pork shoulder or not? And so it's just one of those things where I have that relationship with my dad, and it's truly one of those things that, as a child who has parents that rediscover them as adults, it's almost kind of funny, because you get older and you're like, oh, that's why you did that. Oh, my bad, Dad, my bad, Mom. Oh, that's what you did. Okay, yeah, no, yeah, no, right, yeah, no, yeah. Or and then, but you also, in the same respect, understand, oh, well, maybe that if my parents did go fully through with that, like some other of my friends' parents, fully wouldn't have worked. But I also do have a complaint, Mom. I was fully that guy in house parties where everybody was getting all turned up, and I'm just like, so what y'all think about the commandments, though? Like,
Oh my
because
God.
it's because there was more word and more Christ in my life that I ran out of things to talk about with people. So I've, in all embarrassment to me, where I've been fully drunk.
Churchified. That's the word.
So
Churchified.
the whole thing is like, there's been times in my life where I've been fully drunk because I'm like, oh, let's party. I want to get drunk, and I get drunk, and I'm literally at a bar on a rooftop talking about God. And there's this truth about things where it's like, when you get to that point of inebriation, what's really on your heart starts to talk. And I'm like, man, I didn't have to drink or do any of that to talk about God. I could just talk about him. So it's funny. I fully had a Bible study on a rooftop bar.
Absolutely. My daughter called me one time. She was like, Dad, she was like, all those times, that you made us go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm an adult. 9 o'clock hits, and I just want to. She's like, "Thanks, Dad. I just want to pass out." And I'm
Yeah.
like you're not at the club, you're not drinking, you at the house. I love it.
I fully had my grown person moment because I still got friends on Instagram and they're sharing the stories. And then and I look at the clock. I'm like, this is like 11 o'clock. Y'all ain't sleeping. And I'm just like, you can't do it. And I'm at that age now where I'm like, so y'all gonna go party and then go eat after. Man, you guys are gonna have to take your blood pressure medication in the morning for real. Like it's just like I'm in my 30s now, and I'm like, it hurts to wake up sometimes. And I'm just like, dude, you guys are way older than me, still in the club. I'm just like, come on, my guys.
Man, I wish I was still in my 30s. So, but listen, you guys, time is coming to a close. Some of y'all, it's past y'all bedtime, but y'all listening to us, and it's past y'all. I know it's past my bedtime. Speaking of, 30s and 40s over here, But before we let y'all go, Danny, do you have any last words you want to give to the peoples?
There's something I think about often that I tell my brother is there's a quote I saw: the adult you become is the person that you as a kid would have felt safe around. And it's weird because I talked to that about my brother, and I'm like, we're still kind of similar to when we were kids. And that's just a testament of when you're able to walk right down the middle and include both, you're going to raise functioning adults, because me and my brother don't feel robbed of anything. It's kind of the reverse. We try to go experience stuff and we're like, this isn't cracked up what it's supposed to be.
That's good stuff. Maria?
One thing that we didn't talk about that I just wanted to put in your thoughts is how much forgiveness we have to have for parents and how much forgiveness we have to have for kids. And forgiveness, it's a big part of reestablishing communication. So that's something that we didn't touch on extensively, but it's going to be part of the
Part
healing
two.
process.
Part two.
Yeah, we
Let's
can have a
go.
part two. Honestly, if you guys are open, in the chat, make sure you put part two. And if y'all want to hear part two, because there's so much that we haven't talked about today. And if y'all want part two, put it in the chat so we know that you're interested. And if you're watching in the replay, put part two, and then we'll go ahead, because we still haven't touched fully on forgiveness, how we have to walk in forgiveness. We have to set different boundaries, new boundaries, and how specifically we have to talk to each other as adults. And what does that mean when you have to separate, what you see, rediscovering that adult in your child, and how you have to use different wordings, different attitude, different, you have to pull back, and when do you have to pull in. And so, and for those parents who we haven't talked about how to deal with yourself when your child has cut all contact. What do you do? I still haven't talked about those 2 years. Daniel and I, and Ulises, we even haven't talked about how what I went through and how I processed those 2 years not having contact with Daniel and Gabriel, and then how we walked back and started to have a whole new, we had deep thoughts, we had the conversations, we did a lot of crying. I remember that when I was reestablishing my relationship, it was first Daniel, and then it was Gabriel, and then I remember with Daniel was different. It was with Daniel was a lot of talk, a lot of raw talk, because Daniel is very, very cerebral. So I couldn't go by, well, I felt this and I felt that and I felt, he's like, what, we ain't talking about feelings here. And it was like, give me, oh, thank you, Bridget, give me,
Part two. Let's go.
yeah, so we'll talk about that, and how, I don't know how Ulises, how you did it those 8 months, how you survived, and the pain as a guy, because I'm as a mom, and then I want to hear how as a man, because it's different as a man, as a father.
It's very different.
I think sometimes it's unfair, because with moms, there's very few times when the communication is cut off, but for fathers, it's very easy for fathers. The moms take away the kids, and poor dad, they don't get a choice. They sometimes, and I want to hear Lisa's part on that. So you see, there's a lot of things that we haven't talked about tonight that I feel because I'm a feeling kind of person. So I feel that there's more that we all three of us can really share in regards to those tips. But if you want part two of some more of this, other than Bridget, go ahead and put part two, and we will go ahead and get together and do it.
Beautiful.
Take your personality test, please, please, please. Everybody, take your personality test. It's so
like
good.
4 of them. I've taken like 4 of them, and like what I purposely have done is like every few years I'll take a whole other one, and it'll be different from the last time because
it's growth.
Because we change.
Yeah,
we change.
Growth.
So. But listen, you guys, we definitely appreciate you guys so much for joining in for another amazing episode of Maria and Friends with a spontaneous special guest, Mr. Daniel. So we definitely appreciate you hopping on, and it looks like we will be doing the part 2 because we have a 2 for the part 2.
Part 2, let's go.
As the Bible says, there's 2 or 3 that agree. Can I get a witness up in here? So, yeah, good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. But again, yeah. So next week, we'll do a part 2, and we'll kind of focus on what Maria's talking about, the whole processing and the forgiveness aspect of it. Because y'all, oh my gosh, forgiveness is so necessary. And yes, I was full of anger during my whole time period. So,
wow, I want to hear about that.
Yes, we will get into all of that wonderful, deep rooted. Oh, Lord help us. But listen, we appreciate you guys. And outside of that, everybody say good night, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace, peace, peace.